How's it going, hockey fans? Welcome to the Hockey Stop, your source for all hockey news, hockey opinions, and hockey highlights. So in this video, we're talking about Minnesota Wild prospect Kirill Kaprizov because he did just sign his entry-level contract with the Wild. It's only for 2 years. He does burn off one of the years of his contract because he does sign it at the end of the season. He didn't wait till next season. And yeah, so they get 2 years of him on an ELC before he does eventually get re-signed as an RFA. And he is not eligible to play for the playoffs this season because he did sign it too late. So unfortunate for Wild fans, but this guy is an incredible prospect and I expect him to be a really strong player in the NHL for many years to come. So in this video, I just want to talk about, how he got drafted so low in 2015, what he's done to really prove himself in the KHL and what I expect him to produce this upcoming season and just the kind of player I expect him to be, in seasons to come. So this guy was drafted 2015 in the 5th round, and it's always so shocking to see talented players like this get drafted so late, but you got to consider a couple things when it comes to that draft. First of all, in years before, I feel like now smaller players are definitely rated a lot higher based on their speed and dynamic ability. This guy, he's 5'10" now. It's possible he might have even been like 5'9" or 5'8" back in the draft. And back in 2015, it was even a bit different back then too, where there's definitely more of a focus of wanting, a bit larger players, who also have good skating and different elements. And I think size alone is definitely one reason why he definitely was rated a little lower. Additionally, this guy's Russian, playing in the Russian leagues, and sometimes it's hard to get these guys on board eventually come over to the NHL. So I think even that's a bit risky too. You saw it kind of recently with Podkolzin. He was the 10th overall pick for Vancouver in 2019, and honestly I think he would have went higher if there wasn't just that uncertainty of like when he would eventually make it overseas to the NHL. So I think there's that risk factor also that eventually pushes him back to the 5th round, but also he's proven himself so much since that draft year. He's been producing so much in the KHL, and he's been a point per game guy in the KHL for the past 4 seasons. And this past season was fantastic. In 57 games, he puts up 33 goals, 29 assists for 62 points in the KHL, which is considered a relatively lower scoring men's league in the world. So this guy's putting up top numbers. He might be one of the best, if not the best, scoring wingers in the KHL right now at 23 years old, which is absolutely impressive. Now, I know there's going to be some skeptics because people are going to say, oh, what about some of the past, top scorers in the KHL who have failed when they come overseas? There's always a risk to it, right? This guy is 23 years old, which means he's not at his prime yet. The reason why we value younger players and their production in men's leagues, whether it be in the SHL or the KHL or the Finnish Liga, we value the numbers a lot more because they're younger, they're not in their primes, and they're playing against men who are in their primes more often than not. So at 23 years old, to be like a KHL, one of the top scoring leaders, it says a lot. So I think that alone, the fact that he's producing at this level against men at only 23 in the second best league in the world is very, very impressive, especially in a lower scoring league. But it goes beyond that. You can't just look at numbers. You got to look at this guy's playing ability. And there's just so many, he's a very well-rounded player, at least offensively. The guy's skating is very good, very dynamic, flashy, great to get, with getting around players. He's got a great shooting accuracy, he has a pretty hard shot. Clearly, with over 30 goals in the KHL. And again, KHL scoring is very difficult, very impressive. He can shoot from a lot of angles. You see him in shootouts also. The guy is very flashy. He's got a lot of good, stick handling moves. And his shooting is very good. So you got the speed, and you got the shooting ability. This guy also is an incredible puck, handler. You just can't take the puck away from him sometimes. You'll have the puck, and oftentimes the players, either they'll have pretty good speed, and, will have like a pretty dynamic, flashy ability where they can get around players, or they have a puck handling ability where you just can't take it away from them, and that's what makes them successful in a men's league. This guy has both. It is very hard to take away the puck from this guy. He can just go right around past the net, continue keeping the puck. Eventually he finds his space where he finds a good passing play, and then he makes the play. And that's what also makes him a good playmaker too. This guy is very well-rounded in a lot of elements. He's not a superstar, I would say, in quite all these elements, but the fact that he has all these elements at a very high level is what gives him potential to maybe be a superstar in the NHL. And he's got quite a bit of hockey intelligence too. It kind of seems like he knows when to make a play, and he uses his speed and his puck handling abilities to his advantage to wait out and see when he has that play to either make a pass or to use his impressive shooting ability to take a shot, because he can shoot from a lot of angles, and you see even from the hardest, angles where it doesn't look like there's much room, he still scores. I am very high on this guy. I think he's going to be a fantastic player for the Minnesota Wild, and at 23 to produce at that level in the KHL and to just show a lot of different elements of his game, and continue to develop them, his speed, puck handling, hockey intelligence, his vision, his playmaking ability. He really just has it all. He's very well-rounded, so I'm very excited to see what Kirill Kaprizov can do with the Minnesota Wild next season. I think he's going to have some big numbers, and he makes the lineup, and I think he makes the top 6 right away, because the Minnesota Wild definitely struggles with some of their winger depth, and I think this guy definitely will be one of their stronger wingers immediately. And let's look at comparables before we consider the numbers he'll put up. This guy, and just his progression for the NHL, definitely reminds me of Artemi Panarin. Artemi Panarin was 23 in his final season in the KHL before moving up to the NHL when he started producing humongous numbers for the Chicago Blackhawks. It's not like Artemi Panarin nor Kirill Kaprizov were not NHL players the seasons before. It's just now they're ready to make the move, and they were ready to, make the choice of going to the NHL and giving a shot there, because of course there's interest for Panarin, and there's a lot of interest for the Minnesota Wild in getting Kirill Kaprizov in their roster. And after Panarin putting up pretty similar numbers, he put up 62 points in 54 games in his final season in the KHL 23. Kirill Kaprizov putting up 62 points in 87 games, so very similar numbers, and similar attributes too, because again, Artemi Panarin, fantastic puck handler, great speed, great shot. I don't know if Kirill Kaprizov is quite at the level of Panarin, but he's at a very high level, and I think they have pretty similar, trajectories. I think based on that, I don't know if he quite puts up the Panarin numbers of 77 points in 80 games in his first season. Panarin did have, a lot of talents to work with, primarily Patrick Kane. I don't think Kirill Kaprizov quite gets that with the Minnesota Wild. So if I were just to make a prediction as to what I would say in a full 82 game season this guy would make in the top 6 for the Minnesota Wild, I would say, again, more of a goal scorer. I think a 25 goal campaign, and maybe another this guy's a good playmaker too, and he does make a lot of plays also. I would say maybe about 25 goals, 35 assists for 60 points. And I know some people might say he might be a bit more of a goal scorer in the NHL, at least in his first season, because you look, the past 2 seasons of the KHL, he scored more goals than he did assists. However, I just don't think, I think when it comes to NHL adjustments, it's harder to really find your goal scoring ability, on the smaller ice, and it's a lot more tight, and it's harder to make risks when you're a rookie in the NHL who's used to a different type of game and a different type of ice surface. And for that reason, I feel like a lot of times with players, you will find them, even if they're good goal scorers. And you saw this with Panarin. Of course, in his rookie season, he had a lot more assists and has generally been that kind of player with, Chicago and the Rangers. I just have a feeling it's a little easier to be a little less risky and to be more of a playmaking focused player. And, goal scoring can be a little bit more difficult. But Minnesota definitely needs more snipers and finishers, so Kirill Kaprizov could be that also. I think the goals and assists are pretty even, but I would probably give maybe a little more leaning towards the assists. So, I'm going to adjust my numbers a little bit. I'm going to say 28 goals, 33 assists, something like that. I think that would be just somewhere around the ballpark. If we're just giving ranges, maybe 25 to 30 goals, and then assists-wise, maybe around 30 to 35 assists. I think this guy absolutely is going to be one of the Calder finalists next season. It'll be exciting to see what this guy does. And you never know with adjustments how this guy's going to be, because again, it's never, it's not a one-to-one science. Some players in the KHL have success, some don't. But he is young, he is still growing, and I think the fact that he's going from 23 to 24, he's going to be a lot better this season than he was last season, because that's what happens when players, come into their primes. He still has a lot of room for growth, and I think he's going to have a big season with the Minnesota Wild. And I think down the road, in the future when he is in his prime, this guy can be maybe even a point-a-game player and one of the star premier wingers in the NHL. He has a lot of potential. The ceiling is very high for him. The sky's the limit. And I'm excited to see what Kirill Kaprizov can provide for the Minnesota Wild. So Minnesota Wild fans, you guys are very lucky to have this prospect. Incredible pickup at the 5th round, and you know that. You're getting a really strong winger. And be excited. A lot of goods to come for the Minnesota Wild with this guy, and it's gonna add a lot to your depth, a lot of production, scoring, and good times to come. So if congrats on getting this awesome prospect. Congrats on the ELC to Kirill Kaprizov, and we'll see what happens. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Hit subscribe, hit like, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.